Hey there, knowledge seeker. Ever find yourself, glued to political debates, like picking apart every little detail? Maybe you've even pictured yourself leading a classroom,
Hmm.
getting others fired up about politics.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's what we're diving into today, becoming a politics lecturer.
And let me tell you, it's way more than just lecturing.
It's gotta be right. So we've got RoleCatcher's Guide to walk us through it. And get this, they just updated it in November 2023. So it's fresh off the presses.
Hot off the presses, yeah.
Okay, so first things first, what does a politics lecturer actually do? I mean, besides the obvious, lecturing part.
Right. Well, picture this. Packed lecture hall students buzzing about the latest political, bombshell. And you're the one guiding them through it. You're crafting these lectures that really make them think, designing exams that really test their knowledge, even mentoring the next generation of, political minds.
Okay, so it's intense.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher mentions these typical interactions, and it sounds surprisingly collaborative.
Oh, it definitely is. It's not all ivory tower solitude. A politics lectures day is all about bouncing ideas off research assistants, fine-tuning teaching materials, working with colleagues on research projects.
Yeah.
It's a very dynamic exchange, which makes sense when you're trying to stay ahead of the curve in a field like politics.
And speaking of staying ahead of the curve, RoleCatcher really stresses continuous learning for career advancement.
Yeah.
And we're not just talking, reading the news here.
Absolutely not. We're talking publishing research, presenting at conferences. This isn't just resume padding. This is how you become a thought leader. Because politics, it's always changing, so you got to keep up. And for those with their sights set high, tenure department chairs, even deanships are all on the table.
Okay, but let's be real for a second. RoleCatcher doesn't sugarcoat the challenges. It's a competitive field. The workload can be intense, and, well, let's just say those spirited students we all remember from our school days,
Oh, yeah.
they're out there.
That's the reality.
Huh?
But those challenges come with some pretty amazing perks. Imagine shaping young minds,
Yeah.
influencing future leaders, even contributing to original research. That's powerful stuff.
For sure. And thankfully, RoleCatcher gives aspiring lecturers a ton of resources, interview tips, lists of transferable skills, even links to relevant organizations.
And let's not forget those core abilities they highlight. Things like public speaking, of course, but also critical thinking, active listening. These are crucial skills not just for teaching, but for navigating, our increasingly complex world.
Absolutely. Okay, so we've got a sense of what a politics lecturer does, but what about those just starting out? What do they need to know?
Now, this is where it gets interesting. RoleCatcher actually digs into the education side of things. And, well, the average highest level of education attained is a bit of a mystery.
Really?
Yeah.
That is interesting. Why do you think that is?
It could mean there are a lot of different paths into this career, which is great news for people who maybe didn't take a traditional academic route. Or it could mean that your experience and publications are just as valuable as those formal qualifications.
Interesting. So it really highlights that need to kind of forge your own path, explore different options. But for those just dipping their toes in, what guidance does RoleCatcher offer?
They do offer some guidance. They have a list of recommended degree subjects. Some are the usual suspects, like political science, international relations.
Right.
But then there's some curveballs in there, like sociology, economics, even philosophy,
Wow. Okay.
which just goes to show how interdisciplinary this field can be. You really need to be able to analyze politics from different angles.
It's not just about, dates and names. It's about understanding the why behind those systems, the structures that shape our world.
Exactly. And that's where those core abilities RoleCatcher talks about come into play. They even rank them by importance, which is super helpful.
It's like having a roadmap for success. Okay, so communication is key. We know that. But what about day-to-day? What does an entry-level politics lecturer actually do?
Think of it like an apprenticeship. You're assisting senior lecturers with their lectures and exams, probably doing a lot of grading under their, watchful eye.
Ah, yes, the infamous grading.
Yeah, it's definitely part of the job. But it's also a chance to really engage with the students' work, see how they're applying what they're learning.
That's a good point. What else does RoleCatcher say about entry-level positions?
Well, it seems entry-level lecturers often get involved in research projects, things like conducting literature reviews, gathering data, even co-authoring papers with more senior academics.
So it's a chance to get some real research experience under your belt and start building that research profile.
Exactly. And RoleCatcher really emphasizes how important publishing is for career advancement.
Makes sense. It's how you contribute to the field, right?
Exactly.
But it's not all research, is it? There's the teaching side, too.
Right. Even at the entry level, you get opportunities to gain teaching experience, leading review sessions, maybe even giving a guest lecture. It's a great way to hone your skills and see if you actually like being in front of a classroom.
Speaking of teaching, I was fascinated by RoleCatcher's breakdown of those essential skills. They really get specific, which I found super helpful.
I agree. It takes the guesswork out of it. Like, they listed speaking as the most important skill, a whopping 71% importance rating, which makes sense. Lecturing is a huge part of the job.
It's about captivating your audience, making those complex topics relatable, and maybe even keeping them awake after lunch, which, let's be honest, is not always easy.
No. And it's not just lecturing either. You've got discussions, seminars, maybe even presenting at conferences. Strong public speaking skills are a must.
But it's not just about being a charismatic speaker, is it? What else?
Nope. RoleCatcher also talks about clear, concise communication, both written and verbal, because even the best ideas are useless if you can't communicate them.
And that's where reading comprehension and writing come in. RoleCatcher ranked those as equally important at 70%.
Makes sense when you think about it. You need to be able to really absorb complex information from journals, research papers, all sorts of sources.
And then turn around and communicate your own ideas and findings in a way that's clear, concise, engaging.
Exactly. Whether it's a research paper, a grant proposal, even just an email to a colleague, good writing is essential.
So it's not enough to just talk the talk. You got to walk the walk, too. What other skills did RoleCatcher highlight?
Coming in at number 4 is instructing, with a 61% importance rating.
Which makes sense, since we're talking about teaching.
Right. But it's more than just standing up there and delivering information. It's about creating engaging lesson plans, coming up with stimulating activities, cultivating an inclusive learning environment. You're a facilitator, not just a lecturer.
That takes serious skill, and that's something that can be learned and developed over time, right?
Absolutely. There are tons of resources out there for aspiring educators, workshops, courses, mentorship programs, even online communities. It's really encouraging.
It is. So what's next on their list?
After instructing, we've got critical thinking with a 59% importance rating.
Now, that's a valuable skill in any profession, but I imagine it's especially important in a field as complex as politics.
Oh, absolutely. Politics is full of competing perspectives, ideologies, interpretations. You can't just parrot what you read.
Right. You have to be able to analyze different arguments, evaluate evidence, objectively form your own informed opinions, and then, of course, articulate those opinions in a way that's clear and persuasive.
Exactly. Which brings us right back to those all-important communication skills we were talking about earlier. It all ties together.
It really does. Okay, so for anyone feeling a little overwhelmed by all of this, just remember Rome wasn't built in a day.
Right. It's a journey.
Speaking of journeys, I was really intrigued by RoleCatcher's knowledge and learning section. They really go deep on the knowledge you need to be a politics lecturer.
Yeah, they really lay it all out there. They emphasize continuous learning a lot. And I don't just mean keeping up with current events.
Because as we know, the world of politics never stands still.
Exactly. To be a good politics lecturer, you need to be like a sponge for information. Conferences, workshops, academic journals.
Keeping up with current events and political debates?
The list goes on. It's like being a political junkie, but with a PhD.
Right. So how does RoleCatcher recommend staying ahead of the curve?
They suggest subscribing to relevant journals and newsletters following reputable news sources.
Joining professional associations.
Basically immersing yourself in the field and engaging in discussions with other experts.
So it's not just about what you know. It's about always seeking out new knowledge and growing throughout your career.
Right. And speaking of knowledge, RoleCatcher dives into specific knowledge areas that are really crucial for politics lecturers. It probably won't surprise you that law and government is ranked highly, 72% importance.
Makes sense. We're talking about the foundations of political systems after all.
Exactly. Legal codes, court procedures, government regulations. It's about knowing how these systems actually function. But it's more than just memorizing facts.
It's about critical thinking. You need to be able to analyze how these systems affect people's lives, how they shape communities.
Exactly. And right alongside law and government, RoleCatcher has history and archaeology at a 69% importance rating.
Okay, I get why historical knowledge is important, but archaeology, how does that fit in?
It might seem a little out of left field,
Yeah.
but think about it. Understanding the past, even the distant past, can give us valuable insights into the present. It's about seeing those long-term patterns, the trends that have shaped our world.
Like that famous saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly. RoleCatcher is reminding us that politics isn't just about the here and now. It's about understanding that long, complex web of cause and effect that led us to this point.
Connecting the dots between the past, present, and future. So what other knowledge areas made the list?
Well, they also emphasize sociology and anthropology, ranking it at 73% importance.
Okay, so we're talking about human behavior, social structures, cultural differences. That's a pretty broad range.
It is, and it's all crucial for a politics lecture. At its core, politics is about people, how we organize ourselves, make decisions, interact with each other.
So to really understand those processes, you need to understand people. And that's where sociology and anthropology come in.
Exactly. Now, this next one might surprise you. Philosophy and theology comes in at 64% importance.
Okay, I'll admit that one wasn't immediately obvious to me. How do those fields connect to politics?
It's all about ideas. Philosophy and theology grapple with those big questions: human existence, morality, and justice power. And those questions are inherently linked to politics. To really get the why behind political systems and ideologies, you need to understand the philosophical and theological roots.
So it's about understanding the history of ideas, the beliefs and values that have shaped political thought over time.
Precisely. Now, on top of those core areas, RoleCatcher lists a few others. Geography, mathematics, even. Computers and electronics. It really goes to show you never know what kind of knowledge might come in handy in this line of work.
It's about being adaptable, open to learning new things throughout your career.
Exactly. And speaking of being prepared, RoleCatcher actually offers some great advice on interview prep. They even have a specific interview guide for politics lectures.
Okay, so they're giving us the questions and the answers.
Well, not exactly, but they do give you sample interview questions you're likely to encounter. It's like having a sneak peek into the minds of those interview panels.
Ooh, intriguing. Give us a taste. What kind of questions can we expect?
All right, so picture this. You're sitting across from a panel of professors, all eyes on you. And the first question they hit you with is, what inspired you to pursue a career in politics? And how has your education and experience prepared you for this role?
Okay, that's a good one. It's more than just listing off your resume, isn't it?
Right. It's your chance to show your passion for the subject, prove that you get what the job's really about, and connect your past experiences to your future goals.
They want to know you're not just in it for the fancy title. You have a real fire in your belly for this. What other tough questions did RoleCatcher reveal?
Well, another common one is, how would you approach teaching a course in political theory, and what texts or resources would you use?
Okay, so now they're really getting into the nitty-gritty.
Exactly. This is your time to shine as an educator. Show off your knowledge, highlight your teaching style, demonstrate how you'd build an engaging and intellectually stimulating course.
They want to know you're not just a walking textbook. You can bring this stuff to life for your students.
Exactly. And here's another one that might throw your way. How would you incorporate current events into your teaching? And how would you encourage students to engage with politics outside the classroom?
Because, let's face it, politics isn't a spectator sport.
Exactly. They're looking for someone who can bridge that gap between theory and practice, someone who can inspire students to become active, engaged citizens.
So you're connecting what's happening in the world to what you're teaching in the classroom.
Exactly. Encouraging those critical thinking skills, getting students to form their own opinions, and hopefully get involved in the political process.
Maybe even inspiring the next generation of leaders and change makers. So RoleCatcher has really thought of everything with this interview guide.
They really have. They even have a whole section on competency-based interview questions, which are becoming more and more common in academia these days.
Okay, so for those of us who aren't familiar, what are competency-based interview questions?
Basically, they're designed to assess your past behavior, to see how you might perform in the future. So instead of hypothetical situations, they'll ask for specific examples of times you've demonstrated certain skills or qualities.
So it's about showing, not just telling.
Exactly. They want to hear about real challenges you've faced, obstacles you've overcome, successes you've achieved. It's about backing up your claims with concrete evidence.
Can you give us an example of what a competency-based question might look like for an aspiring politics lecturer?
Sure. One example might be, tell me about a time when you had to explain a complex political concept to someone with little to no background in politics. How did you approach it? What was the outcome?
Ah, yes, the art of making the complex comprehensible.
Right.
A crucial skill for any educator, especially in a field like political science, which can get pretty jargony.
Exactly. They want to see that you can break down complex information, make it digestible, and communicate it in a way that's both accurate and engaging. And that's a skill that's useful in all aspects of being a politics lecturer, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. Whether you're explaining a theory to a room full of undergrads, writing a research paper for a top journal, or even just trying to have a civil conversation about politics at a dinner party.
Precisely. Seems like RoleCatcher has provided a pretty valuable tool with this interview guide.
It really is. Okay, so with some good prep and a healthy dose of confidence, you'll be well on your way to wowing those interviewers and landing your dream job. Now, for those just starting their deep dive into this world, what final wisdom does RoleCatcher impart?
They really stress the importance of hands-on experience.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? Are we talking about shadowing a seasoned professor, maybe running for office ourselves?
Well, maybe not running for office just yet, but RoleCatcher suggests things like volunteering or interning at political organizations, getting involved in student government, joining political clubs or societies.
Those are all great ways to get experience and demonstrate that you're genuinely interested in the field.
Exactly. It shows potential employers that you're serious about a career in politics. You're not just someone who sits at home reading theory all day.
Right. They want to see you're not afraid to roll up your sleeves and get involved in the messy, sometimes chaotic world of real-world politics.
Exactly. And on top of those more hands-on experiences, RoleCatcher also recommends working as a research assistant for a professor.
Ah, yes. The classic research assistant position. It's practically a rite of passage for aspiring academics. What makes it so valuable?
Well, it gives you a glimpse into the daily life of a professor, which can help you decide if it's the right path for you. You'll get to experience research firsthand, doing literature reviews, analyzing data, maybe even contributing to publications.
So it's like dipping your toes into the academic waters before diving in head first.
Exactly. And while RoleCatcher doesn't give a specific amount of work experience needed, they do make it clear that any experience you can get, whether it's internships, volunteering research assistant positions, will make your application stronger.
It's about showing your passion and commitment, which can be just as important as those degrees.
Absolutely. Speaking of demonstrating your capabilities, there's one more thing RoleCatcher mentions that I think is worth highlighting.
Oh, do tell. What other gems of wisdom has RoleCatcher bestowed upon us?
They recommend creating a personal website or online portfolio to showcase your work and experience.
Ah, yes. The power of the internet. Things have definitely changed since the days of just having a CV.
They have? Having a website or portfolio lets you control your narrative. You can highlight your research, your publications, teaching experience, even your interests and hobbies.
It's about building your online identity as an academic, showing who you are beyond just your qualifications.
Exactly. And in today's job market, that online presence can really make you stand out.
Yeah.
It allows potential employers, collaborators, even just people who are curious about your work to find you easily.
It's like having a digital business card, but way better, because you can show your work and your personality in a dynamic, engaging way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you never know who might come across your website and find it inspiring. You could spark someone's interest in political science without even realizing it.
That's a great point. Sharing your passion and inspiring others is so rewarding in any career, but especially in academia, where you have the potential to shape young minds.
I agree.
Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground in this first part of our deep dive. We've explored the many hats a politics lecturer wears, from the classroom to research, from grading to publishing.
And we've just scratched the surface.
Exactly. There's so much more to uncover. Welcome back to the deep dive, where we're on a quest to demystify the journey of becoming a politics lecturer.
And in this part, we're going deeper, beyond just getting the job. We're looking at what it takes to really thrive in this field.
Because it's one thing to get your foot in the door, but how do you actually climb that academic ladder and make a real impact?
Right. And luckily for us, RoleCatcher provides some great insights into career advancement for politics lecturers.
Okay, so give it to us straight. What did we learn from the RoleCatcher guide?
Well, like a lot of academic positions, it seems that getting tenure is a major milestone.
Ah, yes, tenure. It's practically the holy grail of academia. But for those of us who aren't, steeped in academia, what exactly is tenure?
It's basically like winning academic job security.
Yep.
You're granted tenure after a probationary period, which usually involves a lot of evaluations of your teaching and research. And yeah, It's a pretty big deal.
So it's like a permanent contract, but with added prestige and a whole lot of academic freedom, right?
Exactly. Tenure isn't just about job security, though. It's about having the freedom to pursue your research interests, your teaching interests, without fear of reprisal.
So you can tackle those controversial topics, those cutting edge ideas, without worrying about losing your job.
Precisely. And that academic freedom is so important for fostering intellectual inquiry, really pushing the boundaries of knowledge.
It's about protecting those dissenting voices, encouraging people to challenge the status quo.
Exactly. Now, tenure is usually granted to associate professors, but the specific requirements, the timeline for getting there, all of that can vary depending on the institution.
So there's no magic formula, no one-size-fits-all approach to achieving tenure.
Not at all. Every university has its own system, its own expectations. But generally speaking, the path to tenure for politics lecturers is paved with a lot of dedication, hard work, and a proven track record of excellence in both teaching and research.
It's about going above and beyond consistently, both inside and outside the classroom.
Absolutely. But it's important to remember that tenure isn't the be-all and end-all. There are other ways to advance and make your mark in academia.
That's a good point. It's not the only path to success and fulfillment in this career.
Right. RoleCatcher points out that politics lecturers can also move up the administrative ladder.
Okay, the administrative ladder. Tell me more about that path. What kind of roles are we talking about?
Well, for one, there's the role of department chair.
So instead of just teaching and researching within your department, you're actually leading the whole thing.
Exactly. Department chairs oversee the curriculum.
Yeah.
They manage the budget.
Mm.
Basically make sure the whole department is running smoothly.
That sounds like a lot of responsibility and probably a fair bit of paperwork.
It definitely has its challenges.
Yeah.
But it's also a chance to really advocate for your colleagues. You can shape departmental policies and maybe even make some positive changes within the university as a whole.
You have a seat at the table where the big decisions are being made.
Exactly. And for those with even bigger aspirations, there's the possibility of becoming a dean.
Okay, now we're talking upper levels of the academic hierarchy. What does a dean actually do?
Deans oversee multiple departments within their college or faculty. So a dean of humanities, for example, might oversee the English department, history, philosophy, political science, all of those.
So they're like the CEO of a small knowledge-producing company.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
And deans play a crucial role in setting those big picture academic priorities, managing resources, fostering collaboration between different departments.
So it's a position of real influence and responsibility. It just goes to show that a career in academia can be about so much more than just teaching and research. You can also be a leader. You can shape the future of higher education.
Absolutely. But it all starts with that passion, that dedication, that willingness to embrace the challenges and the rewards of this unique career path.
Now, speaking of embracing challenges, RoleCatcher also really emphasizes continuous learning throughout a politics lecturer's career.
And we're not talking about just catching up on the latest political drama. This isn't some casual water cooler talk.
Right, this is about serious intellectual engagement.
Exactly. Continuous learning, it's not just a suggestion. It's a way of life for politics lecturers. Because the world of politics is constantly in flux. New events, new research, new theories emerging all the time. To stay relevant, to stay engaged, you have to be committed to lifelong learning.
It's about constantly expanding your knowledge base, honing your analytical skills, always staying one step ahead. So what are some concrete strategies that RoleCatcher recommends for achieving that kind of continuous learning?
Well, they highlight things like pursuing further education, higher degree certifications.
So even with a PhD under your belt, the learning doesn't stop there.
Not if you want to stay at the top of your game. Many politics lecturers pursue additional certifications, maybe in teaching or research methods, even in specific subfields within political science.
So it's about becoming an expert among experts. And of course, it shows potential employers that you're committed to professional development, that you're serious about staying on the cutting edge of your field.
Exactly. But continuous learning isn't all about those formal qualifications. RoleCatcher also talks about the importance of attending professional development courses, workshops, things like that.
Those can be so valuable for staying up to date on the latest research, for connecting with other academics, for learning new teaching techniques.
Right. And those courses and workshops, they cover a huge range of topics, everything from innovative teaching methods to the latest trends in political science research. It's a fantastic way to stay intellectually stimulated and engaged throughout your entire career.
It's about saying yes to opportunities for growth, even when your to-do list is already overflowing.
Absolutely. And speaking of to-do lists, RoleCatcher also emphasizes the importance of doing your own independent research.
So it's not enough to just teach and talk about other people's research. You've got to be pursuing your own research agenda, contributing to the broader body of knowledge.
Exactly. It's about being on the cutting edge of discovery, asking those big questions that can lead to groundbreaking insights.
Pushing the boundaries of what we know, challenging conventional wisdom. That's what real academic inquiry is all about.
Precisely. Now, the final piece of the continuous learning puzzle, according to RoleCatcher, is staying actively engaged in academic and policy debates.
Okay, so this is about going beyond your own little research bubble and plugging into those bigger conversations happening within your field.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about reading those journals, attending conferences, participating in online forums, really being an active member of that political science community.
Being a thought leader, not just a thought follower.
Precisely. And it's about being willing to challenge your own assumptions, being open to engaging with different viewpoints. That's how we grow as thinkers, as a society.
It's about recognizing that the pursuit of knowledge is a collaborative process and it requires open minds and respectful dialogue.
Absolutely. So to sum it all up, continuous learning isn't just some empty phrase. It's a fundamental part of what it means to be a successful and fulfilled politics lecturer.
It's about embracing lifelong learning, staying intellectually curious, engaged, always looking for ways to expand your knowledge and skills.
Exactly. And remember, the learning never really stops, especially in a field as dynamic and ever-changing as political science.
Now let's talk about something that's near and dear to the hearts of academics everywhere: publishing.
Ah, yes. There's nothing quite like seeing your name in print, knowing your words are out there in the world.
Well, maybe not forever in print, but RoleCatcher definitely stresses the importance of publishing research papers and articles in academic journals. Why is that seen as such a crucial part of being a politics lecturer?
It's pretty straightforward, really. Publishing is how you share your research with the world. It's how you contribute to the body of knowledge, how you build your reputation as an expert.
It's how you leave your mark on the academic world.
Exactly. And it's a major factor in career advancement, especially when it comes to things like tenure and promotion. Universities want to see their faculty members producing high-quality research that's recognized by other scholars.
So it's about demonstrating your impact, your influence within your field.
Precisely. And it's not just about how much you publish, although that does matter. The quality of the journals you publish in is also incredibly important.
Ah, yes, the dreaded journal ranking system. That can be a bit intimidating even for experienced academics.
It's a complex system, for sure, and it has its flaws, but it's the reality of academia. Some journals are seen as more prestigious than others, and publishing in those top-tier journals can really boost your career.
So it's not just about getting published, it's about getting published in the right places.
Exactly. And that's where strategy comes in. RoleCatcher talks about the importance of targeting your publications wisely.
Okay, so what does that look like in practice? How do you strategically target your publications?
It's about understanding your audience, knowing the scope of different journals, and submitting your work to the ones where it's most likely to resonate, where it's going to have the most impact.
So it's like marketing in a way. You're trying to find the right audience for your research.
That's a good analogy. And you also need to be ready to revise and resubmit your work based on the feedback you get from reviewers. Peer review can be tough,
Tell me about it.
but it's a crucial part of making sure that academic research is high quality and rigorous. It's about holding each other accountable.
It's about upholding those standards of academic integrity.
Exactly. Now, publishing in journals, that's just one way for politics lecturers to get their research out there.
Right. So what are some other avenues for sharing your work? What if you want to reach a wider audience?
Well, RoleCatcher talks about the importance of presenting at conferences.
Ah, yes, the academic conference. A whirlwind of presentations, networking, and let's be honest, probably a bit too much coffee.
It's not always glamorous, that's for sure.
Mhm.
But conferences are invaluable. You get feedback on your work, you connect with colleagues from other institutions, you stay up to date on the latest trends in your field.
It's about being an active participant in the academic community. And it's a chance to get your research in front of a different audience, people who might not necessarily read that specific journal where you published.
Exactly. And conferences can often lead to collaborations with other scholars, which can really enhance your research.
It's all about making those connections.
Precisely. Now, besides publishing and presenting, RoleCatcher also suggests that politics lecturers might want to participate in panel discussions, debates, that sort of thing.
So this is about taking your expertise public, engaging with those broader societal conversations.
Exactly. It's your chance to share your insights with people outside of academia, to bridge that gap between the ivory tower and the real world.
It's about recognizing that the work academics do has implications for the real world.
Absolutely. It's about using your knowledge, your expertise, to inform the public, to contribute to those important policy debates, and hopefully to make a positive difference.
Speaking of making a difference, one last thing RoleCatcher mentions in terms of showcasing your work and expertise is creating a personal website or online portfolio.
Ah, yes. You can't underestimate the power of the internet, especially for academics these days. It's not just about having a CV anymore.
Definitely not.
A website or an online portfolio allows you to present yourself on your own terms. You can highlight your research, your publications, teaching experience, your interests, even your hobbies.
It's about controlling your own narrative online, showcasing your personality as well as your credentials.
Exactly. And in today's competitive job market, that online presence can really give you an edge. It makes it easy for people to find you, to learn about your work, whether they're potential employers, collaborators, or just curious individuals.
It's like having a 247 digital billboard advertising your expertise to the world.
Exactly. And you never know who might come across your work online and find it inspiring. You could be the reason someone decides to pursue a career in political science.
Now, we've talked a lot about continuous learning and showcasing your work, but there's one more piece of this career advancement puzzle that we haven't really touched on yet, and it's a big one.
I think I know where you're going with this. You're
Yeah.
talking about networking, right?
You read my mind. RoleCatcher emphasizes networking a lot, and for good reason. Especially in a field like academia, connections and collaborations are everything. But for those of us who cringe at the thought of networking events, can you offer some guidance on how to navigate that world?
Absolutely. Networking can definitely feel intimidating, but it doesn't have to be all awkward small talk and forcing yourself to mingle.
Oh, thank goodness.
Especially in academia, networking is often about building genuine relationships with your colleagues, your mentors, your peers. It's about those connections you make at conferences or in seminars, or even just chatting in the hallway after a lecture.
It's about those moments of shared intellectual curiosity that can sometimes blossom into something more.
Exactly. It's about being genuinely interested in what others are working on, asking good questions, offering support, building a sense of community.
So it's not just about collecting business cards and hoping for the best.
Right. It's about fostering those meaningful relationships that are based on mutual respect and a shared passion for your field.
Now, RoleCatcher does have some specific tips for networking opportunities. What are some of their top recommendations?
Well, they reiterate the importance of attending conferences and seminars, which we've already talked about, but they also suggest joining professional associations.
You mean those organizations that are dedicated to advancing political science research and supporting people working in the field?
Exactly. Being a member of those associations gives you access to a lot of valuable resources like networking events, job boards, that sort of thing.
It's like being part of a club, but for political science enthusiasts.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a fantastic way to stay connected to the broader academic community, both within your specific area of interest and across different subfields of political science.
Now, for those of us who can't necessarily hop on a plane to a different conference every other week, RoleCatcher also recommends participating in online forums and discussion groups.
Oh yeah, the digital age has been a game changer for networking. It's so much easier now to connect with people all over the world.
No more awkward small talk over lukewarm coffee.
Right. You can engage with your peers from anywhere, share your research, ask questions, participate in debates, all from the comfort of your own home.
So you can really expand your network beyond your immediate geographical location and connect with people who share your interests.
Exactly. And that can be really helpful for early career academics who maybe don't have as many opportunities to travel for conferences.
It's about making those networking opportunities more accessible to everyone.
Absolutely. Now, one last thing that RoleCatcher highlights in terms of networking is reaching out to professors or other professionals in your field for advice and mentorship.
Ah, yes. Finding a mentor can make all the difference. Having someone who's been there, done that, and can offer guidance and support is invaluable. But I imagine it can be a little intimidating reaching out to those more established academics, especially when you're just starting out.
It can definitely feel that way, but you'd be surprised how many established academics are more than happy to share their knowledge and advice with those who are new to the field.
It's about paying it forward, isn't it? Sharing that hard-won wisdom.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that mentorship is a two-way street. Well, the mentee benefits from the mentor's experience and guidance,
Yeah.
but the mentor also benefits from the mentee's fresh perspectives and enthusiasm.
It's a mutually beneficial relationship.
Precisely. So for anyone listening who's considering a career as a politics lecturer, don't underestimate the power of networking. It can have a huge impact on your career.
It's about building relationships, seeking out mentors, being an active participant in that political science community. But beyond those practical tips, what's the most important thing for aspiring politics lecturers to remember about networking?
I think the key is to be genuine, be curious, and be open to connecting with others who share your passion.
Because you never know, those connections you make along the way could turn into lifelong friendships, collaborations, or even dream job opportunities.
Exactly. You never know what doors might open.
And on that note of endless possibilities, we'll wrap up this part of our deep dive into the world of politics lecturers. Be sure to join us for the final part of this deep dive, where we'll be exploring alternative career paths for those who want to use their political expertise in different ways. Welcome back, knowledge seekers, to the deep dive. We've spent the last two parts digging into what it takes to be a politics lecturer.
We've covered a lot of ground.
We have. But before we wrap up, I wanted to circle back to those alternative career paths that RoleCatcher mentions.
Ah, yes. Because a passion for politics can take you in so many directions. It's not always a straight line from lecture hall to, full professor.
Absolutely. So for those wondering what else they can do with a political mind, what wisdom does RoleCatcher offer?
Well, RoleCatcher reminds us that the skills you develop as a politics lecturer are valuable in all sorts of fields.
We touched on government and policy journalism even earlier, but what else is out there?
Well, for those who love strategy and problem solving, there's the world of consulting. Politics lecturers with their analytical minds and ability to, make sense of complex information are highly sought after in that field.
They're like those master strategists who get called in to untangle the toughest problems.
Exactly. Businesses, nonprofits, even government agencies, they hire these folks for their expertise.
Yeah.
Because that deep understanding of political systems and policymaking is so valuable in those arenas.
It's like taking those academic insights and putting them to work in the real world.
Exactly. Now, for those driven by social justice, the nonprofit sector is a natural fit.
Ah, yes. Those organizations working to make a difference.
Exactly. And politics lecturers, with their understanding of social and political issues, their research skills, and their ability to communicate complex ideas, clearly they can really thrive in those environments. Think about organizations tackling things like human rights, environmental protection, or poverty alleviation. That's where those skills can have a real impact.
It's about aligning your passion with your purpose, using what you know to make a difference.
Exactly. Now, for those with an entrepreneurial spirit, there's always the option of starting your own business.
It might seem like a departure from academia, but those skills are definitely transferable.
Oh, for sure. Critical thinking, problem-solving, communication, leadership, those are all essential for any entrepreneur.
It's about creating your own path,
Yeah,
your own opportunities.
exactly. And it doesn't even have to be something completely unrelated to politics. You could launch a political consulting firm, an online platform for political analysis, or even become an author.
And the possibilities are endless. It's so exciting. It really seems like a career in this field is more than just a job. It's a springboard for lifelong learning growth and making a real impact.
I couldn't agree more.
Well, I think it's time for us to hand the metaphorical microphone to our listeners. We've come to the end of our deep dive into the world of becoming a politics lecturer.
We've explored the ins and outs of this multifaceted career path, from teaching and research to the importance of networking and continuous learning.
And we even ventured beyond academia, looking at those alternative career options for those who want to use their passion for politics in different ways.
Because remember, knowledge is power, but it's how we use that knowledge that truly makes a difference.
So to all, knowledge seekers out there, keep learning, keep exploring, keep asking those big questions that challenge the status quo.
You never know, you might just inspire the next generation of political minds.
And on that note, this has been The Deep Dive. Keep those minds curious, and we'll catch you next time.